I dealt with pain on the inside of my ankle for 10 years, and it entirely limited what I was able to do over that period of time. And it ended up ending my soccer career. Now I can dunk off of that same ankle, and I can train as hard as I want without any issues. So I want to explain to you in this video exactly what I got wrong, what all the doctors, physical therapists, chiropractors, coaches, trainers, and everybody else got wrong that made it take 10 years to fix, and what actually fixed the problem. So I actually had imaging done a couple times on this ankle, and I got back things like posterior tibialis tendinosynovitis, so just inflammation of this tendon on the inside of my ankle, chronic sprains and all of the ligaments in my ankle, both on the inside and on the outside. So that means that I hadn't actually physically sprained my ankle in quite a while, but there was still damage in all of the ligaments in my ankle. I also had two little pieces of bone in this deltoid ligament on the inside of my ankle that either broke off or turned into bone in the ligament. Nevertheless, if you do have pain on this inside of the ankle, the common thing to think is that, oh, I'm overpronating, like everybody at the running store says, and that's putting too much stress on the inside of my ankle, and that's what's causing my pain. Or maybe you think that my arch is just too weak and it can't handle all the forces, so it's putting too much pressure on the inside of my ankle, and that's what's causing the pain. Or maybe I need orthotics with it. Or one of the things that I thought was that my leg was actually too short, so it was putting too much pressure on the inside, and again, that I would need orthotics to be able to put the pressure back to the outside or fix whatever was going on. Or the worst thing I actually thought that maybe you think is that this is something that nobody's ever dealt with before in the history of the world. Nobody's ever fixed this issue, nobody's ever had this issue, and you're a special snowflake, and that this has never been done before, and you were just born with it, and it sucks. So what I want to do is today explain what actually happened, how I fixed my ankle, and that why almost none of these things were true. And let me be clear, this is not going to cover everything that could possibly be causing pain on the inside of the ankle. I just want to explain exactly what happened to me, because I've had a whole bunch of clients come to me that have had exactly the same story. So I want to put this out because I know that there's a lot of people that have had this exact thing happen to them. So let's look at what the actual issue with my ankle was. So it started with ankle sprains. I sprained my ankle for the first time when I was 12 years old, and dozens of times again beyond after that. So the issue was not overpronation, the issue was not weakness of the arch, the issue was not some natural thing that I was born with. The two issues were actually a lack of pronation and a lack of strength on the outside of my ankle. So it's basically the opposite of everything that I thought the issue was, besides the idea that I was putting too much pressure on the inside of my ankle. So let's start by looking at the ankle, and I promise I'm not going to spend 30 minutes just moving around this model foot. It helps to understand what we're going for here. So when your shin moves forward, so when your knee comes over the toes, your shin just doesn't move irrespectively of the foot like that. What actually happens is as it comes forward, there's twisting and there's flattening of the arch like that, and then it comes back up. And this happens for two reasons. First, we actually need the foot to get out of the way of the shin. So if you've ever felt that blocking or pinching sort of in the front or even on the inside or a little bit to the outside of the ankle, it's probably because your foot is stuck and your shin is literally running into bone or pinching the tissue or something on the front of the ankle. So we need this flattening and pronation of the foot to get out of the way. The second thing is that it's sort of like loading up the end of a whip. So you have your hips and you have your knee and you have your calf and everything, but almost all of the muscles in your foot, what they do is they squeeze your arch and they plantar flex, so they point your toes down. And this is an explosive movement that helps push you forward. So the pronation and the flattening helps to load all of that up so that you can be explosive and pop out of there. And if you can't do that, you're going to end up with various issues, and you're just not going to be nearly as fast or as explosive as you would like to be. And so a normal foot does this. It's not some huge movement that you see, but it's small movements that actually allow us to move properly. The problem with me was that I had all these ankle sprains, and two things came out of that. One, after you sprain your ankle, or generally after you hurt any part of your body, you're going to sort of tighten up to protect it. So if you hurt your back or you pull your hamstring, you're going to get a tight back, or you're going to get a hamstring that's not very mobile for a while until you heal it, and then the goal is to get back to how we were before. But that doesn't always happen, especially if you repeatedly injure an area. Like my ankle, my foot just got really stiff and it stopped moving because it wanted to protect the area even after it had healed. The second part was that when you sprain your ankle, you damage all of these tissues, all the ligaments, tendons, muscles on the outside of the ankle. So mine got damaged and damaged and damaged and damaged, and it got really weak and it couldn't really handle a lot of load. So these two things combined created one issue, and that was that A, my body didn't want to load anything on the outer side of my ankle, and B, it couldn't flatten to allow my knee to go forward. So to get my foot out of the way and allow me to get into these deeper ranges of motion that I needed for soccer and just moving around and doing everyday things, instead of pronation, I ended up doing E version. So my ankle would just dump in, and that was my response to be able to continue to move forward and do all these things I needed to do. And this seems like you are pronating when you're inverting. And that's why I thought I was overpronating and why so many other people think that they're overpronating. Because it looks like your arch is flattening, but in reality it's just coming closer to the floor. So normal pronation will look like this, and then you see you keep all the points on the floor and your arch flattens and you have a little bit of this shin rotating inwards. E version just looks like this. So it's just everything tipping towards the inside and you lose that ball of the pinky toe and all of that. So you can see how this could get confused with pronation because it looks like your arch is getting flatter, but in reality, it's just everything dumping towards the inside. So one way we can see if you're pronating or you're everting for yourself is what I call the pronation reps. I got them from Gary Ward at Anatomy in Motion. This is a really great way for you to look at your foot and see how it's actually moving. Or alternatively, if you want to hop over on my free school page at www.school.com/ankles, we can run through a free one-to-one assessment with me over Zoom. But if you just want to do it on your own, these pronation reps look like you're in a normal split stance here, and you're starting with this knee locked. And from this position, you're just going to relax and let your knee come forward, and you should be able to see that my arch is flattening and then raising up as I come back up. Points here, do not lose the heel, the ball of the big toe, or the little toe on the ground. They have to stay on the ground the whole time. Do not squeeze your foot. You should not feel this anterior tibialis tendon turning on. You can kind of see it flicking if you're pulling forward. And the final point is that we don't want the toes to grab the ground, and you should never let your heel come off the ground. So if your toes grab, it's gonna lock up the foot and you're not gonna see whether you can pronate or not. So again, simply, I'm here, I'm just releasing my knee and letting my shin come forward. I'm not coming all the way, forcing that ankle range of motion, but just enough so that my weight gets over the ball and the arch of my foot. And I can feel, and I will be able to see if I was videotaping, which I actually am, I can see my arch flattening and I can see my arch raising up. It's relatively subtle, but this is really important. And if you can't do it, let's look at a couple ways that we can rebuild that ability to pronate. So the first way to get the foot to pronate is to manually make it pronate. Because we can't relax into it and it's too tight, we can use something like a band and you just wrap it around your shin so that you have something to grip onto, because otherwise it can get slippery and it's hard to just grab your shin. So from here, what we're trying to do is keep the foot really relaxed. And from here, we are going to internally rotate this shin. So we are trying to rotate the shin to the inside of our body. So for the left foot, it's to the right. For the right foot, it's to the left. As we come forward, keeping the foot relaxed, and you should see that this opening of the inside and the dropping of the arch and the moving like that, that would be the first way. So again, same thing as the pronation reps test we did before. We want to keep all 3 points of the foot on the ground. We want to keep the foot relaxed. We don't want it to stiffen up. We don't want to grab with the toes, which should be something that's going to open up the more you do it. And then eventually we should be able to get that pronation in the foot coupled with that internal rotation and everything else going on. So once we can manually get the foot to pronate, the second thing we want to do is be able to get the foot to pronate without us manually doing it, but while we're focused entirely on it. So surprise, we're going to do the pronation reps again. What we're doing here is we're really focused on getting that arch to flatten, getting the foot to sort of, it almost looks like your foot is getting longer and getting wider. You're flattening and you're loading up all these tissues. If you have a hard time feeling what's going on, you could stick a sock under your arch, under your foot. It would look kind of like I would fold this probably up into thirds, and I'll put it here. So probably most of the way into my foot, and now I can really feel how my arch is flattening and pushing into the sock, and then as I come up, it's raising up off of it again. So that can be a really helpful thing to feel. And then third, we want to be able to do it without focusing on it. So we want to be able to pronate without the focus on it and without us manually doing it. So something like a bent to straight knee calf raise, where we are starting with our weight over the arch of the foot, over the balls of the feet, and we're coming down. And then you should feel that loading, that slight dropping of the arch, extending of the foot. And then from here, as we push up, we'll end up supinating, which is the opposite, and the foot's going to tighten up. But we come back down, and this will allow us to pronate and come back up. So those are the 3 stages. Those are just one of the ways that I take people through it, but that was really helpful for me, especially being able to get it manually at first, because I could not get it to go without me forcing it into it. And then once I opened up that range, I was able to do it with focusing on it, and then I can start doing it normally. So even if you do get the foot to pronate and you get the foot to open up, if you're super weak and you don't have the strength to handle forces on this outer side of the ankle, then you're still probably gonna have issues with it. So two of the exercises that I use with my clients and I use in my athletic ankles program that you can get, again, down below if you want it, that I use to really focus on getting some strength and getting some load into the outside of the ankles. The only thing we're gonna need is some sort of a slant. So you want a fairly shallow slant, so you don't want something super steep like that. These are two really good options. This is from the Tib Bar guy, it's the adjustable wedges, and then this is the Sole Step from David Weck, really great as well, kind of expensive. But you can use a slant board. If the slant board is too steep, just elevate the lower side so that it gets less steep. Anyway, what we're trying to do here is we're trying to bias the foot towards that outside and force the outside of the ankle to be able to handle your weight, to be able to handle all the load that's coming in. So the way I like to do it is, first exercise is going to be a spring ankle hold. This is the more difficult one. We're really putting a lot of load into the outside of the ankle. So from here, all you're doing is you're making sure you're not leaning forward, but we're coming all the way up to the top. Straight knee, ankle all the way plantar flex, so pushing down, and then we are holding here. And you'll notice as it gets longer, you're gonna have a harder time not falling out to the side. And it's a really good way to take the ankle to failure. So I like that one as a more advanced progression on it, but still really helpful. The second one that I use a lot is it's called a soleus slouch, but my twist on it is that I use the wedge in the same way. So again, ball of the big toe is higher, the ball of the little toe is lower. From this position, I like to do it with your heel floating off of the slant. From here, all of my weight is on this foot, and I'm just using this back foot to balance. I'm keeping my knee slightly bent, and from here, without moving anything hip, knee, or foot, I'm just gonna slouch and round over, come down, touch the ground. From here, I'm driving my foot into the ground. I'm trying to squish a bug under the ball of the big toe, the ball of the little toe, and my toes. I'm smashing 1, 2, 3, and then using that same push to come up while I bring my hip forward and not unrounding my back. The balance can get a little bit difficult, especially when you're talking and explaining it, but this is an awesome, awesome exercise to rebuild the strength on the outside of the ankle and how you push into the ground. Then from there, you can progress on to doing it without the outer slant and just feel the whole ankle, and then you can also do it on flat ground. So those are the two ways that are two of many ways that you can strengthen the outside of the ankle, but I think are probably two of my favorite, if not two of the best ways to strengthen that area. So this is basically the video that if I had 10 years ago, it would have changed the trajectory of my life, but I didn't have it, and I ended up figuring it out eventually. But now I'm here, and I'm making this video for you guys because hopefully it'll change the trajectory of somebody else's life or just help somebody in some way, or at least you enjoyed watching it. So these ideas can also be helpful for people that have had a bunch of sprains or just had issues with the foot in general. These can be helpful things to try. If you want more specific help with this, you can join my free school page and you can do a free assessment and onboarding call with me, and we'll run through and see what's going on with your ankle. Or again, if you don't want to talk to me, you can get my programs at the second link below in my premium ankles group. So hopefully this was helpful. Like, subscribe, all that other stuff. And if there's anything else you want me to cover or help you with and make videos about, if you like this kind of video, let me know down below, and I'll see you guys soon.